We'll just give 2 minutes to those who may be coming.
Good evening, Prof.
Yeah, good evening. I'm thinking we give 2 minutes to those who may be joining us late. But if there are any questions from yesterday's section, we can start with that. Should there be questions from yesterday's sections?
Oh, we are the new.
All right, so yesterday we had an introductory session into leadership. We understood the concept of leadership, leading. And then we went in to talk about some evolutionary trends in leadership. We were able to compare leadership, management, and also establish the need for us to have both leadership and management competencies. And then we went on to various theories after looking at the core variables in leadership. We looked at the behavioral theory, the trait theory, the style theory, the skill theory. We also looked at motivational theory. We looked at the X and Y theory by Douglas McGregor, and we established how we can improve motivation as a means of ensuring that people work, with a sustained zeal towards the goal of the organization. Today, we'll be looking at issues around leadership, which are very important to leaders. And then tomorrow, like I said, we'll be doing some practical lecture note for that sheet tonight so that you can try your hands ahead of tomorrow's discourse. Stress management is one area leaders must take care of. Understandably, if you look at the variables in leadership, the leader is very important. The leader, we also looked at the work of the head manager or the leader. And you see that he's almost everywhere, doing quite a lot, either or supervising those who are doing it and engaging with external stakeholders. So stress may result, and in your work, in this some core issues. Stress comes from stressors. Stressors are not what enables us to work, but what enables us to break, as a result of either excessive work or unpleasant work. And it's important to understand this because most times you need a bit of stress to keep going. But you stress, but when it gets to a breaking point, it becomes distress. So stress is into distress, that really creates the problem. Stress may arise if we are not found in the right places, doing the right things, and maybe getting the right result. So a mistaken identity can lead to stress. That's also not the type that should be teaching, that you find yourself as a teacher or a lecturer. The fact that you're the wrong person, maybe in the wrong in the right place, could lead to a lot of stress because this is not your thing. It's not what you like doing. So mistaken identity can lead to stress of a leader, or when people are set up to fail. Let's assume you're given a task without a commensurate support resources, and so on. That can also lead to a lot of stress. Our personality can also be the cause of stress. In this sense, we have personality type A and personality type B. What are type A personality? There are those who are aggressive. They just want to hit it at every point in time. So you see them as being restless, impatient, perfectionist. You understand? At such point, you see that they are more likely going to be stressed than the personality B that take things calmly, don't possibly worry themselves, are not so bothered however things are going, so on. This may likely be less stressed. So your personality can also lead to stress. We spoke earlier about mistaken identity. And what that means is that if you're the wrong person in a wrong place, it will lead to regression. Now, this is about you, the leader, and also the team members. And so looking at the end result of having a wrong leader in the wrong place, we will not make progress in that sense. I mean, okay, all right. Same thing if you are the wrong person in the right place, it will lead to frustration. Take, for example, that you are in this class now and you're happy with what the class rep is doing, everybody's working well. And all of a sudden, the school authority decide that we're going to put a leader because we want to control the class. Now they bring up a leader appointed by the school, and then that person does not have the skill or the competence and the character to lead. You find out that until you finish your program, there will be a lot of frustration. People just try to see how to figure things out and so on, and then they're going to be overworked. Unlike when you have someone you have all chosen as your leader because you see he has what we call the traits or the character and the capacity to lead. And it makes things easy for every one of you. Go, show, and then he is able to support even individuals to establish a sweet spot. The same way if you have a right person in a wrong place, confusion. You might have seen systems where you just bring in, a new sheriff that says it's not business as usual. Begin to look at, is it going to block our way? Is it going to do this? A lot of confusion will go in that system. But if you have right person in the right place, you expect progress. But what is more needed is when you have right people in right places. So as a leader, you work towards that, ensuring that right people are in right places for you to achieve growth in your organization. So if the wrong person comes, it's going to struggle. It's also going to affect those being led. So this is very important. And because stress is the consequence of stress has a lot. But stress is one condition that affects virtually every organ in the body. If you read your lecture note, you see a lot of things that stress causes, virtually every organ. in your body. You see the picture there, you see all organs are this thing. And I spoke about the distress, the destructive stress. You know, and in the workplace, one of the things we as guard against is workplace rage. There are places you go to, you step in, you just understand that the climate is not friendly. You see staff quarreling among themselves. This one say, please help me get that. Why don't you go and get it yourself? You understand? So that is one major cause of stress. In fact, there are people that before they get to work, they're already feeling stressed because they don't know what they're going to expect at the workplace. They're keeping calms, or people stepping on each other's toes, and so on. This is a common behavior that as leaders, we must be able to resolve on time. The workplace should be a pleasant place where everyone works, they're happy, each person watching the other's back, supporting themselves to see that things go well. So this slide shows you the negative consequences of destructive stress, and like I said, we have that very clearly in your lecture note. And so how do you cope with stress? There are personal and there are also organizational approaches to coping with stress. And some of the strategies, if you are a busy person, you must take your fitness very serious. There are some of us that run through the week, every month. You ask them, are you having a routine for physical exercises and so on? They said, no. Exercise is a very important intervention to help you cope with stress. And you can arrange a schedule and keep to it. Thankfully, in this day and age, there are a lot of devices that help you support stress. You can go in and do some aerobics, do some workout, do some, all kinds of things, just to keep you to distressed. That is to remove stress from you. Diet is also very important. As leaders, you may be worked up to the point where you possibly, if you're not the type that keeps to routine of breakfast, lunch, and an early dinner, you may end up working and find yourself eating very late. And there are a lot of consequences, for that, including metabolic syndrome and all that. So diet is a strategy for coping with stress. We also have psychological strategy, which means we have to have network. What you can do, someone else can do it. You understand? And planning ahead. There are offices where maybe from the leader, you just wake up in the morning, you see, oh, you've got a new itinerary for the day, unplanned. You possibly may be thinking of going on a vacation. Oh, they throw a lot of things to you. So planning the work environment and planning your personal, activity is very important to relieve stress. As long as you know what you are involved with, you are more likely to work it out at your pace rather than getting emergency calls, and all that coming into your distance. Holiday is also very important. And we have been trying to promote this even in the local context. Typically, for those of you in civil service, you have, on the average, 6 weeks or 30 working days, to go on leave. It doesn't make sense to take all that at a time. Now, what from research we've been doing makes sense is maybe every 6 weeks, you take 1 week. That 1 week helps you to, for a retreat or a holiday, helps you to, get back everything you have expended. That's recover, yourself, to forge on. And one of the things we think is that, oh, holiday is a wasteful venture. It is not. It's not. Merely stopping what you're doing over 6 weeks and just looking at something else, could be a way where you can come back more invigorated, to even move faster than having fatigue on the job you are doing. And many establishments allow this, that people could take just that short leave, after the 6 weeks period, and that enables them to improve their productivity. It is also important to try mediation and relaxation strategy. Meditation, mediation, relaxation, all these are very important strategy for relieving stress. You know, I'm speaking with you now from a garden, and I know I've been here for a while, and I know how that is helping me to relieve a lot of stress. So that's very key in relieving stress. And then talking about organizational strategy, for relieving stress. There are a couple of them, but you see a few on this slide. Decentralization. How often do you need to be people's queue, trying to get authorization to do what you need to do? And so as leaders too, we must ensure that for responsibilities we give to others, we empower them sufficiently to deliver. Decentralization goes with delegation. And in delegation, we must make sure we are not only giving out responsibility, we're also giving out authority. Responsibility and authority must be given. Because when there's responsibility and no authority, it creates tremendous stress. Tremendous stress. I had worked so many years ago in a setting where, a commissioner at every point in time gets approval from the governor, talking about if a budget has been prepared, commissioner cannot just run, he has to get approval. And the mechanism of approval is it's not as straightforward as say, go send your file in, maybe through the secretary and get it signed. You must come with your file. And coming with that file, you may sit down from morning till evening, just waiting for an approval. Sometimes it doesn't go that day, you come back again. At that time, I used to head the state house clinic, and then some of them come to the clinic to check up themselves, and we see that their blood pressure is really, really high. So you need to be admitted. They said, no, 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 no. If this file under their armpit is attended to, that the blood pressure will normalize. I don't know how true, but I recall that at a time we lost one of them, obviously as a result of a massive hemorrhagic stroke. You understand? And that was when the system understood the stress, that it takes, to get an approval or an authorization, for activities that have been delegated to you. Sometimes, again, the issue of reward system needs to be looked into. You understand? Some people, you belong to an organization, you are 10, and one person is doing all the work, 9 people are not. At the end of the day, everybody collects the same salary. That can actually lead to stress. Now, when it comes to issues around salary, now, if you go back to the Hesber's 2 factors theory, in our society, salary or emolument, because we receive salary and not wages. Now, when we talk about wages, it means that it's fair enough for work you've done. So there's a metrics that will measure what you've done, either in hours or in productivity units, like number of operations done, or like that, and the reward. We saw that it's a very big determinant, for motivation. People will work harder if they are given fair wage for what they are doing. You understand? So in a system where you don't have the clear metrics for ensuring that people get fair wages for fair work done, you're going to have people that are going to be stressed in that system. And typically, in that system. And then we must also think about the issue of training. When it comes to job placement, there is need for mutations, first line training, and so training on the job. Something maybe in a job that they're struggling with, just trying to figure out what they should do at every point in time. Because the moment you're engaged, the system believes that you know what to do. Just go ahead and do it. Communication lines involve a shared leadership system where you want to, as much as possible, lateralize everything, not hierarchy, not verticalization. You talk to this talks to this, it talks to this. It creates a lot of stress. But where there is this lateral relationship, people can always call in and get actions fixed, or everybody's on the form as they have need at one end. Whoever sees it first responds, you see that people are less stressed in that kind of system. Um, there are other things, but when it comes to productivity, you have to work that out how it was, because with COVID, a lot of companies, especially developed clients, now found out that productivity is not only when people come to the office to work. People could be in their homes or anywhere else, and they're producing the right output. You understand? And so a lot of studies are going on now that shows that if people are allowed to work in their preferred environment, they're less likely to be stressed, in whatever they do. All right. So we see all that. You see this work exercise, you're going to do it on your own when you are looking at, stress. Now, time management, but let me just ask if there's any concern at this point. It could just be a comment or a question on stress management, stress, and the leader. Any concern, any comments from anyone? Any stories of experience to share? Okay. Yes, Elizabeth, please.
Good evening, Prof.
Yeah, good evening.
Um, I don't know if you've touched what I want to ask. So
Yeah.
thank you for the lecture. That so long I came in. So I really want to ask about stress. So is
Hmm.
it correct to say that stress is relative? As in, what I may consider stressful may not be stress to someone else.
Oh,
And
yes,
so that can also
completely.
determine the level to which stress or an activity affects the other person or each person.
Yeah, that's true. And I did explain that. And I told you that in your lecture note. You see the curve there. Now, people, you don't want to get to that break point. You understand? That is the climax of the curve. It's when you get there that it translates from eustress to distress. And that is where you begin to have problem. There are people that are so inspired that they can run, they can walk, they can do a lot of things, and they are not stressed. In fact, if you want them to be stressed, stop them from doing what they're doing. That's when they will become so stressed. You understand? And that is why you see, if you're doing certain activities, you need not only your physical health, you need your psychological health to be in good shape. Because people who are in that state of complete physical, mental, psychological, social well-being, they end up able to strive, in various conditions, without getting stressed. So every individual has got his threshold, and you must identify your threshold. You understand? Now, if you go through your workbook, you see some of the symptoms of stress, and you find out that these symptoms goes from organic, to a lot of psychological symptoms. You can actually know when this is happening to you. You understand? And it may not be to the level of activities you've gone to, like others may be going through. So everyone has got a threshold. That's very correct. And so if I am talking to students, for 3 hours. I come back, I talk to another one. To me, I may be enjoying it. It may be my pleasure or my pastime or whatever, or you make fun of it, that's what you are doing. I possibly may not be stressed than someone who has other business engagement and then feels that this is a distraction on him. It's not his thing, but he has to do it, and all that, So those are things that we see. And as a leader, you must also be checking up yourself, especially if you've gone to the middle age or around the middle age. You begin to check your blood pressure, assess if everything is right with you once in a while. Because like I did say, which you see in your notebook, stress affects virtually every organ in the body. And once there is an affectation, one of the earliest things you will see is chemical derangement. So when you go for tests, it will show. You understand? And then you begin to see some of the physical conditions, blood pressure is now rising up. Some people begin to have all kinds of funny symptoms. They come to the hospital, oh, something is moving around my body. Those are depressive symptoms. You understand? Oh, I'm having itchy, all over my body and all that, all these are manifestation of stress. You understand? So we must identify our threshold. But if we maintain what we like doing, or we are having the powers to be in the right place at the right time, doing the right things, possibly getting the right result, you see that that is motivating enough to reduce the stress, significantly. Okay, I see a couple of hands so that I don't talk so much about this. Yes. Yes, Hereta
Good
or
evening, Prof.
under the hands raised, please.
Yes, good evening, Prof. Hello, Prof. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yes, I want to talk about the stress, workplace stress, because I just want to maybe at the end of it ask a question, because the government, let me feel that way, feel they are paying civil servants. And for that reason, you don't need to complain when you're being packed up, when you're being scheduled to work in and out, you're working, stressing yourself, burning out, and nobody cares. Because I know when you look at the roster, you're working like 11 days and you have one off day. And if you want to complain, the person will say you are complaining too much. Even when you meet, please, this is not good for me. Sometimes I just feel I have retired from this job because my body, spirit, and soul have retired from the work, but I'm still seeing myself in this workplace working because I have to, at the end of it, that's where I get my money from to take care of myself, pay my bills. At this point, what is your advice to this person? Because like I'm dying in silence. I've tried or nothing is working. So I am still like trying
Can
to.
you tell us again? I didn't follow the narrative. I had a distraction.
Yes, Prof. Yes, Prof. I'm talking about stress at the workplace. That maybe the government just feel because they are paying you, you have to like work. Because sometimes I look at my roster, 10 days in, 1 day off. How do you work like that? And when you complain, nobody listens to you. Because I look at myself, at my age, I have already retired. Spiritually, I have retired, but physically, I'm still finding myself here, working because this money pays my bill. At this point, I'm mentally gone. My mental health is being, well, there's nothing I can do because I need this money and I have to like put myself to work because of this stress. And I now ask as a lecturer and someone that has been managing stress, what is your advice to someone like me? What would you tell me to do? Because I don't want to retire.
What I'll tell you to do is first you need to be healthy to be able to work. And so
yes,
you must adopt those personal approaches I stated earlier, to keep yourself healthy, just as having a routine for exercises, your meals, and then your rest. All these are very important, meditation and all that you do it. And even after you've done that, you should know what you can't handle. You understand, depending on your age and perhaps personal circumstances. And you should be kind enough or polite enough to tell anyone pushing that to you, say, no, this is where I can get to. You understand? Because of what. You understand? Nobody is going to, because employers have a responsibility to ensure that you are in good health, before you go on and do everything. So in work placement, you must look at people's capability and see, what you can do. Because honestly speaking, we don't pray for that, but the system moves. You understand? The system moves. So it's, you know your limit, and try to negotiate that with the authority.
And if you try to and no one answers you, nobody cares. Because when you look at the state, everybody has gone for greener pastures.
Oh yeah, I know, but you can't still do more than what your capacity should dictate, honestly speaking, that's it. Because you will break down. That's the ultimate, and it will not be nice for the system.
Okay, Prof. Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
some people can speak of, but it's important to have a fair work for yourself. You understand? And depending on your motivation, I know there are people whose production can be so high, but it's always good to understand what you need to do, because we run systems where we have to even gauge the production capacity, and we try to ensure that things are in place. You understand?
Hello, okay. Hello, Prof. Can you hear me?
Yes,
You know, it's worst when it comes to health sector. Like I work in the hospital, it's the worst, and nobody's hearing us. And we don't want to retire to compulsory retirement.
And do you enjoy what you're doing? Is it
No, sir.
is it a use stress to you? Is it keeping you moving? And because sometimes people are supposed to retire, they say, no, I'm still strong. And the system say, yes, you are strong, keep on doing it. Does it make you feel good that you are doing this? And to the limit,
The
it
stress
does.
is killing us.
No, then you have to state where your boundaries are. You understand? Typically in a work system, they have a measure of work that, let's say you're a doctor, they tell you, oh, if you do 15 to 20 minutes consultation per patient, you possibly could be able to see up to 20. In fact, I was somewhere where somebody was saying 30 patients. Yeah, because he gains $100 per patient. You understand? So he's motivated, to see lots of patients. In fact, if your problem is taking more than the slot allotted, he tells you, no, it's only 2 slots. You understand? And no problem, he sees you, you get his money. You understand? So in that kind of system, people will work for 15 days and go away for 15 days, playing golf, holidays, because they feel they made enough money. But a situation where that's not the case, you should determine and then negotiate with the authority what you need to do. That may require more hands to come in, or an even share of responsibility, because one of the things you find out when we come to teamwork is that in many systems, you have a lot of loafers. Loafers are on the payroll, they get paid, but they are not doing any work. And it affects those few that are actually doing the work. You understand? Yeah, there are a couple of hands. Keep each of these things very brief so that we can move on quickly. Yes, go on. Anyone that wants to speak. Yeah.
Hello, good evening, Prof.
Yes.
Okay. So, Prof, my question is, from what you've said, most of the ways to tackle stress seem to be a bit individualistic, and looking at even what
also organizational. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because my question actually was, how can you, beyond these individual stress management techniques, I know a lot of people talk about coping mechanisms and all that, but what in your own experience has been the most effective at organization level interventions that are actually proactive in nature, not reactive to complaints, and ultimately, improve the workplace? Thank you.
Yeah, I did share some of this when I was talking, and honestly speaking, many workplaces are not structured, especially in the public sector. In the private sector, they are more structured. There are KPIs. Everyone that gets an employment also understands his tax and also understands how to execute that tax and what people will be looking for, in that tax. So there's a structured system, where your employment comes with a whole lot of documentations that you would need to know what exactly you'll be doing. But in the public system, it's not so. The moment you're employed, they just feel you know what to do. Just go figure it out. And sometimes the employment is so haphazard, it's not need-based. So while you are running a hospital, you need more clinical staff or frontline clinical staff, and then someone is going to employ all kinds of record or officers or things that are unconnected with what you're doing. It creates a lot of stress, because while there will be redundancy in certain areas, there will be a lot of workload, or what we call overwork, in some other areas. And that is a very big problem in public service. Another thing, if you go back to what I shared with you earlier, is the fact that there is the issue of delegation or responsibility without authority. You understand? It's a big problem. It's a big problem. Let's say you are in charge of a primary health care center, and then you are you generate money, and all the money is said to go to the center, let's say the primary health care board. And then when you have a need, you start writing, and sometimes even pay visits to the board, trying to negotiate how you solve that need. And because you know that need is hampering the work and also affecting your staff, you are stressed already. You understand? So those kind of things can lead to a lot of stress. So when there's decentralization, in other words, in a typical workplace, you have your responsibility and you have the authority to call the shots within that space you're occupying. You tend to be less stressed, because you do not need to defer to anyone to take the right decision at the right time, and probably save yourself from a lot of stress. We also talked about the issue of adjustment of reward. This is something I don't know when, but it will get to us in Nigeria. Let's say you go outside this country, you are paid what we call wage. Wage is calculated, is clearly calibrated. It is $10 per hour. You understand? So you know that you come in, you leave this. It's unpardonable that you're supposed to resume by 8. You are coming 8:15. You come earlier than the time, and as you start working, you will work until it's your break time or it's your closure time, and then you go. You understand? That's a fair wage system. In fact, there's a celebrated case when I was in the UK. A staff was at work, and then the staff was using the system that she's supposed to use to work, and she was on her social media site. And then the supervisor came and saw what she was doing.
Prof, we can't hear you. I don't know if any other person can hear Prof.
I think it's network issues. Let's give him some time.
Okay.
All right, sorry, I was struggling to unmute myself. I lost connection at some point. Yeah, I was talking about when I lost connection, I was talking about the issue of coming to work and then doing other things. Now, if a team, an organization is made of teams, and then someone is loafing, it puts a lot of stress on others. You understand? So that judgment shows that when you are at work, you have been paid to work for the organization and not to be picking up your calls, getting on other assignments, even doing private businesses and so on. Because when you do that, you're putting a lot of stress on others. If the organization is meant to achieve a certain level of performance, which the leaders or the managers will want to assure, you understand? So that works well. So many private systems now are now seeing the need to even change the design of offices to open floor plan. An open floor office is where everybody sits down. You have your desk, well aerated and so on, and then you don't need to close down all the walls, make the wall as transparent. Anybody pass when they are working and all that, you are more likely to be seen working in that environment than when you have your own office and suite, everything is there. You don't know whether you're gisting with friends or you're watching TV or you are making calls and so on. So with an open floor office plan and also making sure that there's transparency in what we're doing, many banks are not doing that. You see that people are there, they're really working because they're looking for productivity. If they don't do it, a few persons will be stressed and stressed out. You understand? So these are some organizational mechanisms, that contemporary organizations are using to ensure that work is evenly distributed, among staff in the organization. All right. Apologies again for losing my network. Can we go, or Joseph wants to say something else? Ozigbo.
Hello, Prof, can you hear me? Can anyone hear me?
Yes,
Prof,
we can hear. Yes, I can hear you. I hope
Okay.
others.
Okay, Prof. I was just having this thought around my head that will it be right to say stress has to do with your sense of thought, your mindset? Like you said earlier on,
Your
talking about
personality. Yeah.
stress as being relative. What's Mr. A sees to be stress is not stress to Mr. B. So I was just thinking, okay, if Mr. B sees what I'm saying to be stressed as not stress, I could also buy into the Mr. B's mindset and turn around the things that tend to be stress to me to be pleasure. Like you give an example, as you're lecturing right now, it may be something you love doing. So no matter
Yes.
how often you do it, you don't feel stressed. You just enjoy doing it. So I don't know if I'm right to say if I can buy into your mindset, despite the fact that presently lecturing is not my thing, I could begin to love lecturing by interacting with you and getting to understand your mindset in approaching lecturing. And that will just take away that the things that I see as stress. I don't know if you understand my question, Prof.
Yeah, I do understand. And when we started, we listed all that issues around identity. And then we put up a couple of scenarios, where you're right person, the right place, right person, the wrong place, all that could cause stress. We spoke about personality A and B, where we also mentioned if you're personality A, you understand you're likely going to be, because you're a go-getter. You want to make things work. So you are restless, you are just pushing things up and so on. Unlike the personality B that doesn't really care, and so on. So the personality A is likely to, be stressed, But I also spoke about the issue of inspiration. People, once you are inspired, I can imagine Have you ever tried jumping a height of 5 meters? But I can tell you that if you're in a flight mode, let's assume there is a lion or maybe something is going on, you would be shocked at what you can do. And you'll be happy afterward that you did it. You understand?
Yeah.
But we just want to get to the point where we don't reach the break point. Now, when it comes to issues around stressful conditions, there are people that tolerate it for, a short time. And afterwards, they tend to get back to their normal state, because if that situation continues, it becomes distress, to them. And this was the situation where I said, instead of taking a 6 weeks holiday and go to somewhere and all that, why not take it every 6 weeks? You take 1 week. That 1 week helps you to reinvigorate, to renew yourself and everything. And then you come back to work. You understand? The system allows those kind of staggered kind of holidays, and stuff like that, because you need those time to really get yourself back. And the truth is this, when you get yourself back, you're going to do more than even people that are working continuously. You understand? And they are fatigued, but they're still working and doing the things and all that. You understand? So understanding oneself, like you are positing, is very important, but more so, once you understand yourself, you try to work. I've seen people that tell me that, look, when their blood pressure is high, that they know it. In fact, somebody told me that some of his vessels in his calf will just start bulging, showing that it's this thing. He has not done any test and anything like that. But he said they know. Some people tell you they know when their blood sugar is getting raised, things like that. They know when they are stressed. So understanding oneself, of course, is ultimate knowledge. If we understand what Ren Descartes said earlier on, the cogito ergo sum, you must know yourself. We all have our limit. We all have the way our system works and so on. So anything you invest to know yourself, is very important, and try the most you can to keep to your limit, as much as possible. All right, I still see a few hands up. I thought we have exhausted that, but if we have very quick comments or responses quickly, let's get this over.
Hello, Prof.
Yes,
good evening, Prof.
Yeah, good evening.
Thank you, Prof. Please, Prof, I would like to have your advice about this situation. Picture an organization where they recruit equally qualified staff for particular tasks. And for a particular task, you have staff performing at different levels. Most commonly, we can have stress arising from maybe, okay, I perform, allow me use the word hyper performance. I am hyper performance and my colleague is much more less performance. And I have to be hyper performance for at the end of the day for goals to be accomplished. And so at the end of the day, we all earn the same salary. So, Prof, my advice is how can the organization ensure that I am my salary, my reward for my job is fair.
Yeah, I did mention that could lead to stress. Once you work hard and at the end of the day, you are not able to get, remunerated appropriately. The same way I spoke yesterday when I talked about 360-degree leaders, talking about middle-level leaders. One of the things you need to guide against, are you the type that like recognition? Because sometimes you do some heroic things in your organization and you're not recognized. Will you be demotivated? If you feel no, that, oh, I'm just doing it because this is my nature, you are likely going to help yourself a lot. Sometimes you do certain things, great things, and somebody asks you, why did you do that? You understand? And you must settle it in your mind that you are here to make an impact. And so your motivation is based on the result you are getting and not the reaction of the system, to you. Because if you look at the reaction of the system, you will not continue doing that. A new nurse came into the health center and she said, when I came in new, I was coming to work by 7:30, and I will start working, and I will do most of the work. And my colleague will come by 9 o'clock, and even when they come by 9 o'clock, they will sit down and just be watching me do most of the work. After a while, I got discouraged. Why are you people waiting for me to be doing all the work? I come early, I do this, I do this, I do this, and so on. And she decided to join them. And so she has now come back to what was considered the culture, the work culture of that health center. And we see a lot of this play out. So once you feel you have the capacity and you want to make an impact, you should also settle it within yourself that what if there is no incentive? What if there is no higher pay, you understand, for what you are doing additionally? One of which I think in the management side, they will teach you in the issue of staffing. Recruitment is done. Deployment is not done properly. People don't match people's skills to what they want them to do. And even when they deploy, training is not done. And even when training is done, there is no motivation. Oh, a performance-based incentive is such that, oh, you meet this milestone, you're likely going to get this bonus, that bonus, and so on. So people have their eyes on that, and they will want to work hard to see that. They are not going to be stressed because they see that's a motivation for them. You know, they can accomplish that. I get an enrollment of 200 in a month. Oh, why? I get extra money. You know, I'm going to work that out. You understand? You know, so these are things you need to learn. On the one hand, if you are the type self-motivated, and if you are the type that say, okay, irrespective of whether I'm incentivized or not, I will go on, you're likely going to help yourself a lot. But if you want to be recognized, to be incentivized, you know, you are going to be discouraged and stressed up with whatever you're doing. You understand, Ayan? If you're still here. Okay, what about you, Deme, Judge?
Hello, Prof. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes. So I think let me just throw in a little um, contribution from my end. So I think when people start identifying the stressor, and it will enable them to
manage it. Hello? Maybe we lost you. I hope it's not from my end. Hello? Hello?
manage the stress.
Yeah.
So stressors are actually things that give stress.
Your network is terribly bad. Yeah, I think we lost him, but he was talking about identifying your stressors, you know, so that you can be able to manage them effectively. Another thing leaders do is time management. Please kindly confirm you're hearing me. Kindly confirm you're hearing me, please.
Yes, Prof.
All right, time management. Leaders need to learn how to manage time. Although the thinking is changing now to being more effective, you understand, than rather looking at the time, you understand. But time is also a very important resource, you know, for leaders. And time management requires that you are able to identify your key activities, what you need to do to give you the greatest mile, you know, and what you need to delegate, you know, to others, you know, to be able to focus on more important things, you know, that give you your greatest mileage. And so that's called the Pareto principle, sort of, where, find out that 20% of what you do makes up 80% of the results you get. Can you confirm you're hearing me again, please?
Yes, Prof, we can hear you, sir.
Lovely, lovely. I see a signal on my system telling me weakness of the network is weak. All right, so 20% of what you do gives you 80% of your results. So kind of try to identify that 20%, focus on it, and delegate the others. You understand? Let's assume you are now a leader as a woman, a mother, so could say a housewife, a church leader, and so on. It will do you a lot of good to engage with people that are domestic that can help you sort out some of the other things that you need to do so that you can focus on the high-end activities to your own stratification, and then let others do the other thing. Another thing with respect to time management is the fact that leaders need to develop their senses. In that sense, develop the senses to be able to identify what is signal and what is noise. What is signal and what is noise. Now, let me say this, a clear definition. Signals are those things that people say or you observe or comes to you that can help your organization make so much progress. Noises are the things that distract you. You come to your office on a good day, and then there's a line of visitors coming in, and then one person comes in and start talking about the village life and start talking about your old days and all that. I feel that is noise. You've come to the office to work. You understand? You need to attend the most important thing that will move your organization. So if you don't have the capacity to identify, you end up whiling away all the day and you go home, and a lot depends on you as a leader to make sure that people need authorization. You need to give it out. You need to look at all these things very clearly. There are people like, I know the late Steve Jobs had a target of 2080. That is 80% signal, moving of signal, and 20% noise. You understand? But I'm told that even Elon Musk is tending towards 100% signal and 0% noise. So once you are tending towards more of signal, you don't have time to waste. You identify, you ask yourself every time, what am I doing here? What is this man saying? Does it require my time? You must pass yourself through that test regularly, and see that you dispense very quickly with things that are noises to you or are distracting to you. That again will enable you to achieve more within the time that you have, so that you can also create time to rest. Do I make this clear to everyone? In a brief.
Yes, Prof.
Yes, I see a hand up. Let me attend to the hand. Maybe that will enable me give more explanation. Ada Maria. Okay. Or is there anybody that wants to ask anything or make any comment on this? Udeme, please. I hope your network is good now.
Yes, good evening, Prof. Once more again. I think I
Yeah,
changed
good.
my location. Okay.
Okay.
So, like I was trying to say, one of the ways I feel stress could be managed is to identify the stressor. I was trying to give an example through a woman with under a reproductive health age who um, gets pregnant. In the pregnancy, she never knew she could have a preeclampsia. So in the course of the pregnancy, it is the pregnancy that even triggers this hypertension in pregnancy. So as soon as she delivers, she will return back. Hence, this is showing like a stressor to give that onset of hypertension. Now, in relating it to our work setting, most of the stressors could actually not actually the wages in some cases. It is the relationship within other staff, feeling that you are you're deprived of a particular thing. So some people may not find the working environment very free to themselves. So I feel these are some of the areas. So when you can tackle to either in that workspace to see how to be friendly with either your manager or something, you could actually see a way to also reduce the stress in that area. So and
Yeah,
I don't,
we spoke
yeah.
earlier about the work environment, where I spoke about work rage and how we can manage the work environment to make it pleasant, for people. And I did say in those comments I made that this could be a major cause of stress when there's hostility among staff, when there is caucuses, divisions, and so on. As a leader, you must be able to manage all that. It creates substantial stress, in the office, and also reduce productivity, among staff. So we need to look into that. And we've talked about time management, and I did mention a couple of things around that and how we can improve our effectiveness, even by looking for signals rather than noises, and ensuring that we make very good use of available time, so that we rest. But is there any one comment on this before I move on to change management? I'm just touching on it because I have explained it elaborately in the lecture notes, which are with you. Chinedu, you want to speak on?
Yeah, sorry, thank you, Prof. But sorry to draw you back. I was just looking at the human function curve, and there's a
Okay.
place you mentioned a comfort zone. So I would like you to touch on that indeed, so that we don't, get to reach the burnout stage or get to the hump curve. So please, can you quickly
Yes.
say something about the comfort?
So when you look at that curve, you understand, and you see, you need a measure of stress to keep you going. That is very clear. You understand? And one thing we say is that necessity is the mother of invention. So without that level of stress, you probably will be docile, you know. So as you move on, getting those challenges, your productivity increases. You understand? Your stress is also increasing, but it still remains a good stress, until it reaches the climax. That climax is considered the breaking point. If you are able to identify that, you will find out that you are losing productivity, you are losing concentration. You understand? And in that situation, you need to learn how to manage and stay within that zone, that gives you the maximum push to be able to just achieve what you need to achieve without getting on the other side of the curve, which is the curve for distress. And that is where a lot of times you see a lot of people, get into that curve and they burn off or they burn out. And burnout is very common now, especially somebody makes the issue of people, especially in the health sector, emigrating, and then a fewer people are now meant to do all the work. Who tells you you have to do all the work? You have to do your work. And what is your work? The system should establish that. And if the system establishes that, play by that. You understand? But if you feel you are in your individual capacity, you can actually go a lot more. Because when you are moving up that distance, your health will be compromised. You'll be facing a lot of things, including exhaustion, ill health, lack of concentration. If you make mistakes in the course of doing your work, you may receive a query. Like the mistake? Was it a system you should? Yes, sir. People may not want to tell you all that. So understanding your within this context, your own curve, will help you know what to do at every point in time. So getting to the peak where you have optimum peak performance, which is within your comfort zone, you enjoy doing it. I work a lot. I must be honest with you. I do quite a lot of things, but I can tell you I enjoy doing it. In fact, since this morning I've been on the journal. I'm an editor-in-chief of Scopus and EBSCO Host Index Journal. And this is my publication period. We're doing a lot of reviews of galleys, and so on. But I can tell you, I would not want anyone else to do that because I want to use that keen eye, to look at it very much. And if I finish this lecture, I will go back to it. You understand? Because I should finish it hopefully by today or tomorrow. I enjoy doing it. I worked some time ago with a governor that has so much inspiration. You can just be there around 10 o'clock. He says, oh, let's go a 10 kilometer. He's moving 100 kilometers to start off another distance. You understand? And as his physician, I would tell him, look, okay, this is not a way to go. You understand? But we have to keep him fit to do that. But people around him were stressed out because it's not their thing. So when you are motivated, you would see that you are able to do more, but understandably, do it within that comfort zone. And that is the left side of the curve. Make sure you don't get to the other side of the curve because you start deteriorating both in performance and in your physical, mental, and overall health, which is what I want you to avoid, using that human function curve. All right. We had the issue of time management, and I thought there would be questions there. I explained quite a lot on your notes there, and I wanted you to get to understand very keenly the Pareto principle I stated there, and also look at the signal and noise, which is not there. I tried to identify that will really help you, in achieving more within the available time you have. Leaders are also involved with change management. Change management. We must understand that change is required in our organization, it's also required in our personal life. So there is nothing permanent except change, according to Heraclitus, and so leaders must be up. If you are a project manager and you've drawn the most fantastic implementation plan, you find out that work as in your book is different from work out there. So one of the things you'll be discovering are issues that are variations from what was planned and what it is. And so managing change becomes one of your most important skills. And when the comes, you don't defy it. You manage it immediately, because change does not manage properly will lead to distortion in your entire project. You understand? So leaders are involved in change management, and I know it's a difficult thing, especially when you look at stakeholders that might be involved, with such change, and sometimes you are quite uncertain as a leader. What will this change bring? Will it lead to a enhance, or will they crucify me when eventually this change does not lead to what was expected? So there are different ways you can manage this change, or different approach you can use. You may decide to use a step-by-step approach, which is transitional, or you may decide to do it within a drastic approach, which is transformational. You understand? Let's say, for example, you are in a mess, a social mess, like we experienced that yesterday. And then you now say you want to make it transitional, that is move step by step. You probably may not be able to get it, fix it, go for another one, fix it, before the reactions start coming, But let's take, for example, a situation where you have a new president, and on the first day he came to office, he said fuel subsidy is gone. And people thought that was all. He said the dollar had been liberalized. Exchange. Have we died? You understand? Now, this was a change that over 35 years, leaders have been trying to implement. But in a transitional approach, topping up, you top up, there'll be a reaction. Sometimes you top back, you scale back. And then later you come again and you add again, there's a reaction. You will with it, you will stay back. But look at what a transformational change can lead to. Just one swell swoop, you've removed all the arbitrage in that line of doing things. You are stabilizing the economy. You are bringing a more realistic focus the economic system and so on. And so that's why change is very important. You understand? But as leaders, we must learn to manage the change. We must know why change is necessary, the type of change we want, the timing, what could be the barriers, the culture, style, and all that. This is very important. And then I've explained the various types of change, and you choose the one that you think you can wither, and then move through I lost you again. But I knew I was talking and making sure that the benefits from the change process is seen early so that it will be easier for the system to adapt to that level. You have to freeze that point, and in your absence, you find out that it may not be changed again. So we need to understand that. And this talks about how this is done and the different approach you want. Mental change, transitional or transformational change. And we try the most we can to ensure the depth approach when it comes to change, and this is where institution needs to develop an institutional, to know what works best for them, especially in a very competitive environment. Change is inevitable, and that change is not a one-off thing. Nothing is cast. Have to change as the environment, the business climate is changing. Your system is also changing, in that order. And that's organizational changes. There are other factors you need to look into, some of learning theories, when it comes to change management, and so on. You look into that, system thinking and change. And then, but the 10 most important resistors to change, please note that these are resistors to change because this will actually help you when you are planning the change process, and that's one of it is a loss of control. This is because in the course of managing change, there may be a period where you moving up, you have a clear picture of what people do not see that. And so moving from the current position to the new position, may lead to some distortion within the system that people may not be patient enough, to see what lies ahead, and when the agitation is so tough, you may lose control. You may lose your job as a leader, assuming that it gets to a point where the external stakeholders get bothered about what you're doing. You understand? But if you can survive that, you become a hero of the system. You understand? You may lose control, you may lose face, you may see a lot of surprises from quarters you may not even expect. There may be real threats because there are people benefiting from the status quo who may not benefit from the new state of affairs, so they may come up with threat, and all that. So all these are things we need to understand and play and plan with, when we are managing change. There will be resistance to changes, and this is a very common experience. And we can also overcome such resistance by ensuring that we give listening a priority, and we must also tell our stories. Don't keep things to your mind and feel people should figure it out. Be a good communicator. In that sense, you are able to communicate your plan, engage with people, get a critical mass of change agent within your system. You understand? That will keep you going. And then let people participate in the process. Create opportunity for them to share in that process, and be involved, in it. And then follow up some of this organizational approach and approach which we deal with people, you find it easier. But I'm not saying you will always succeed. You will not. But only time will vindicate your action. And the good thing about leadership is that the more results you make, the better it is or easier it is for you to manage, your team. Because at some point, people will want to associate with you because you are now making good results, which of course rubs off on them, as well. I'll call you later, please. Right. So this plays out. I have made it clear in your lecture note. I think you'll be able to work around it. But if there's one question on change management, I'll be glad to probably use that to explain more. Any? Okay. But change is not, it could also affect you as an individual, but mostly organizational changes. All right, teams. Leaders work with teams, and also you may be a member of the team, but I did say in a shared leadership, everyone is a leader within the team. And so you have a role you are leading, within that team. So managing the team is also very important. You understand? So teamwork is a very core aspect of leadership. When we look at teamwork, we've seen how people work independently, but collaboratively, interdependently, sorry, and collaboratively to see how to get the work done, and teams are different from teams actually are intentional arrangement. They don't just come. Most of the time, people group you together does not necessarily mean you're a team. It may just be a work group. Understand? Team must show, although there are various stages in the formation of a team, but if a team does not move through those stages to the point of performing, it becomes a problem. They still exist mostly as a mob or a group, as the case may be. But if you are the leader of the team, you make sure that you go through the phases of team formation. Yeah, from the forming stage to the norming stage to the storming stage, you understand, and all of that, so that it will be easy for you to get to the performing stage, and that's where you begin to see results of all the bonding and all the things, that has gone on within the team, and in your notebook, you see a lot about it, about all the stage. Why are teams useful? They're useful for these various reasons. All right, so these are the usefulness of teams. And when I hear the situations where one person is doing the work of other, it shows it's not a team. Once there's team, there's distribution of work across among all the team members. And so you see people doing and also sharing in results of the team. So it's these are all very important reasons why team exists. If we want to go fast, we go alone. But if we want to go far, we go with others. Please don't disturb me. Those are features of strong teams. Someone is distracting my phone that gives me network. Sorry about that. Features of strong teams. Strong teams. Well, some of the features of strong teams is the fact that you see the strong relationship, and I will talk a little bit about this. Most of the time, we tend, especially in healthcare, to have a system that does not foster community, among the frontline workers. If you look at the way we work, the doctors, the nurses all find themselves together under the same environment. We call it situational factors. So if you understand teamwork among doctors and nurses, you tend to see that it's a lot better than when you're dealing with the pharmacist or dealing with the laboratory scientists, and others that are a bit distant. In a typical healthcare facility, people work and they go in for leisure. And so religious places are now still segregated. In other words, you have a doctor's lounge, you have a nurse's lounge, you have a lab scientist lounge. So there is no opportunity for people to connect, you understand, and build relationship and build trust. And this is found in many public settings. And so it becomes difficult to even understand what the other person is feeling. You probably will understand yourself, but you don't understand what the other person is feeling or how it's feeling or whatever. That's a very big issue we see in trying to build strong teams in healthcare, especially at the tertiary healthcare level. There's also the issue of shared responsibility and ownership. Every team member has got a responsibility, and they also share in whatever success the team records, in its assignment. And so watching each person's back is a very important aspect of it. We call it mutual performance monitoring, and this is for the overall interest of, in the case of health sector, the patient. If we don't do that, mistakes made by A could transmit to the patient, leading to harm. So teamwork, communication, mutual performance monitoring are very important in healthcare. Let's take, for example, I'm a doctor and I have made a prescription. I expect that the pharmacy who is more knowledgeable in drug matter would know that this could be a wrong prescription and call my attention, as well as call the system to know that there are tendencies for prescribers to make mistakes, so that the system can strengthen such responsibility, and stuff like that. But where he says, oh, well, that's not my business, and he goes dispense that wrong medication, someone at that receiving end will be harmed, by that. And so strong teams have a way of monitoring themselves, watching each other's back, not to pull someone's down, but to see that we support ourselves to render what we consider to patient. And it's also inspiration and motivation. And this is another thing as a leader of a team you should try to do. You try to share motivating experiences among team members. Let's say a member of team has done something you consider heroic or has really enhanced team's performance through his or her action. It's important to share among the team members so that people know that with such recognition, that actually the leader recognizes, and it makes the team to recognize those kind of heroic contribution, and everybody will want to be there one day or the other. It's not all about money. It's recognition. If you look at the Maslow hierarchy of needs and so on, you see that becomes a very important motivation for people to want to do things, because they may even have staff of the year, of the month, and you set the criteria very clearly. You see, people will aspire, to get all this stuff. You understand? And then strong team also have a way of distributing work, making sure that everybody has a measure of the work. I at this is again at the tertiary health centers, where you see teams that are made up of, let's say, an O&G team made up of 6 consultants. The question is, who is doing what? You understand? Who is doing what? Sometimes we say we are stressed. We are stressed because 1-2 persons are doing the work of 24 persons. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And systems do not seem to understand that, look, there is loss of accountability when we bloat systems. We learn it nowhere. It's just a way that in systems like ours that are impoverished, we even try to be inefficient, and that worsens the situation where a few persons are now doing a lot of work. If you know your complement of staff you need, talking about a mix and cadre, you go for it. Don't make a mess of that composition. So if you need 2 house officers, 1 registrar, 1 senior registrar, 1 consultant, make sure you maintain that. If there are more people because of the caseload, create more of those teams, you understand, so that there is clear responsibility, there's distributed workload, among these things. So we will have to see this as leaders and see how we tackle them. There are current trends in teams, especially this digital age. There are a lot of virtual teams, there are a lot of multifunctional teams, multi-purpose teams and all that. You see that all in your lecture notes. Formation of teams, I've explained that, the forming stage, the storming, the norming, the performing. And I really would like you to see how you wither this very quickly. No team ever come in and they blend from start. They must pass through this stage. And but when you get to the performing stage, try the most you can to keep it at that. That's from the Toxman model. There are a lot of criticism of this model, but it's still commonly used. And also the issue of conflict in teams. Conflict will arise, and this arises as a result of the fact that you're dealing with people of different personality, interest, and capacity. So there will be conflict, and how we manage it is also very important. We have the Toxman conflict modes. I think yesterday I did some explanation around this. We try the most we can to see that we go on to the point of collaboration. Collaboration is when you have a high level of assertiveness as well as a high level of cooperativeness. It leads to collaboration, you know. The common things you see that you won't like about teams is the fact that sometimes people or team members don't give attention to results. Result is very important. We used to say before now that we have to work hard. It's good to work hard. But these days we know that what is required is working smartly. A smart work is different from a hard work. You can be working hard with a blunt knife. So you must sharpen your knife and ensure that you work smart because result is what counts. So if I show me your work by how hard you work, I'll show you my work by how smart I have worked. By the result will show. So we must give attention to results, in our teams. And then we must also ensure accountability. Accountability in this sense means answerability to the different stakeholders. You are answerable to team members, you are answerable to the leader, you are answerable to external parties, and we must see ourselves as being accountable. And that will make us to ensure that we do what is right in the circumstance we find ourselves. There must be commitment. And this is where I talk about loafers. Sometimes in team, you see a lot of loafers. These social loafers are those who want to be part of the result, but they are not making any contribution. And yesterday, I emphasized the need for us to see human capital as what cumulatively every team member contributes to getting that result, not the number of persons or the qualification of those people you have that gives you your actual human capital. It is the contribution, the cumulative contribution they all make. So lack of commitment could lead to that diminution of result because some people may not be committed to the team's work. And sometimes people fear to confront the obvious because they don't want conflict. You understand? And it used to be common saying that if you talk, you die. If you don't talk, you die. You understand? It's important to confront this. It's important to be honest about your feeling. You don't bog in so many of these things without speaking up, and getting things resolved. And that is why we argued yesterday about whether we should forget about our differences or whether we should understand our differences. Understanding gives you a lot of strength, so you now know what to tolerate and what you cannot tolerate. And so lastly, the issue of trust. Trust. Yeah, if people don't trust themselves as team members, it will be difficult for them to function together. All actions can be misconstrued, by other parties. You understand? So these are processes of teamwork. If you're doing a research around teamwork, there are a lot of tools out there, but they look through some of these processes, in teamwork, like the attitudes to teamwork and task work in a hospital. I've shared some experiences of that, which shows that situational factors makes doctors, nurses to have high level of teamwork across all the 8 processes, teamwork processes, than you have with other frontline health workers. And also mechanisms to bring people together and let them see the reason why they must work together and understand themselves, better will be very, very important. In some universities, in some hospitals like the University of Benin Teaching Hospital, they even have a common lounge for all staff. They have the golf course, they have the tennis court, everything. So people see themselves, they play around, they do a lot of things. And so they understand and also respect themselves. They give themselves mutual respect. So clearly you need to understand those processes, teamwork processes. You have team motivation, team cohesion, communication, ability to manage conflict, shared goal, mutual performance monitoring, and all that. And also see how we can balance our assertiveness and our cooperation to achieve collaboration, within our team. And then looking at stress management, time management, managing the team, managing the work environment. Yeah, leaders do have to lead also the work environment. Environment are all external factors that affects the operations of the organization. Now, typically, organizations have the internal environment, which is under their control, solely under their control, so they can regulate that environment properly, and then you have the near environment. The near environment are those things that interact with your organization frequently. They may include your contractors, your suppliers, and so on. You can also influence them to a large extent. And then you have the far environment, which is the regulatory environment, the economic, the technological environment, and all that. These are the external environments we're talking about. In that case, you can only react to it. There's nothing you can do. You can only react or respond, because they determine what happens. Now, some environments are certain while others are quite uncertain. An uncertain environment is one that changes so frequently, so that planning becomes so difficult. We passed through that in Nigeria last year. There were a lot of uncertainty. I think last year in 2023, yes, there were a lot of uncertainty in the environment, a lot of vagaries. You may make a plan now, in another 2 weeks, it's null and void. You understand, because of the changes happening. But we see stability coming into the environment in 2025. You understand, and we hope that more stability will come, in years to come. So environmental uncertainty is very important for leaders to operate. Sometimes, when I spoke to you about the variables in leadership, if you undermine the operating environment, you do that to your own peril. It's very important for leaders to be environmentally conscious. When I spoke about the skill theory, I did talk about the issue of having conceptual skills, technical skills, and interpersonal skills. But even at that, leaders must, if you look at your lecture note, you will see that leaders must develop intelligence. Intelligence cuts across at least 5 forms of intelligence. Your intellectual intelligence, you can't be dull, cognitively dull as a leader. No, you must. You must. How can you speak when you don't even remember what you're doing? Sometimes people think it's strange for people to, as a leader, you must understand facts and figures. You must speak. And as you are speaking, you are backing it up, with the facts and the figure. You understand? So you must improve your cognitive efficiency, in that regard. You must also be, apart from being intellectually intelligent, you must also be socially intelligent. You understand? And this is very important, how you connect with people. You can't be a leader and be a loner or be isolated. No. Social intelligence will give you that skill, to be able to connect. You understand? You must also be emotionally intelligent. How do you react, when you are faced with unpleasant situation? You must be culturally intelligent, understand culture, respect culture. You understand? As much as possible, keep to the culture. You understand? Don't be someone who gets people off because of the way, you deal with them based on the known culture. You understand? And lastly, you must be politically intelligent. You understand? You can't be a leader, and you don't understand how to. There are political landmines, especially in countries like Nigeria. You must be politically intelligent, and try the best you can not to make a shipwreck of your leadership because you are politically naive, in that sense. So all this applies when you are dealing with the external environment. You have to have all this intelligence so that you can be able to predict the environment, and see how you respond appropriately. If you are in a high uncertain environment, you require great deal of flexibility and adaptation. But when you are in an environment, that has low uncertainty, that is low uncertainty in that sense, you probably will be looking at when you have low uncertainty, meaning that you are highly certain, you probably be looking at having your strategic plan. The strategic plan is what you use over a number of years, and the environment will remain the same. So that goes on. It's a long-term plan, different from your medium-term plan and then your operational annual plan. You understand? But if it's highly uncertain, how will you draw a business plan when you know the very next time there will be changes? So that affects strategic planning, in that kind of environment. So understanding the complexity of environment will enable you lead that business, properly. I've spoken about the internal environment, the near environment, and the far environment, and this explained, in this slide. Issues around planning and all that are things you need to know. How do you measure, assess the environment? There are a lot of tools for doing that. If you want to assess the internal environment, the SWOT analysis is there. And also the McKinsey 7S is also a very good tool for assessing the internal environment. Whereas for the external environment, you can use the PESTLE, model. And if you want to start examine the internal and the external environment together, the SWOT analysis will be very useful. SWOT comes with strength and weakness, which are for the internal environment, and opportunity and threat, which are for the external environment. So you read through all these tools, in your note. It's all there. Let me ask if there are any questions before I proceed at this point. Talking about teamwork, managing the team. Yes. Yeah, Barry. Yes, if you can unmute and speak. Yeah, Barry.
Good evening, Prof.
Go on.
Okay, sir. Thank you for the lecture. For the teamwork, one of the ways to managing conflict from the pictorial diagram you presented was avoiding. You talked about at what can you give an instance, a scenario where that could be useful? And
no. I'm only telling you the various conflict modes. Yeah, that's not the best approach. It's not the best approach. And I did say that the best approach is you achieve collaboration. You understand? If you have to go on avoidance, it's not a functional team that works on it. There are people that keep we call it diplomatic malice. They just feel, I don't flow with this person. I just have to avoid. It will not help the team. You understand? But it could arise if we do not balance our assertiveness and our cooperativeness, within the team. Those other modes may arise. And we try the most we can to see that we ensure that every voice counts. And also, while the voices are counting, we are able to listen to what others are saying so that we also cooperate with them, and have a state of collaboration. That's the ultimate, you understand? But others do exist which do not help the team. All right, any other question or comment? Good. Are you?
okay, yes. I still intend to have some clarifications in a situation where you're having some form of antagonism from a superior. You wouldn't be able to confront the superior, maybe in a work setting. Don't you feel that avoiding is the best way, because you are not going to you are the the superior is not ready to hear you out.
I don't know who is the leader. Yes. Are you the leader or the superior is the leader? The superior, of course, is a positional leader.
Yeah,
But
the
who is
superior is the
leading?
leader. The superior is the leader, of course.
It's a positional leader, but does he have leadership skill? Because if he does have, he will know that that state of tension between him and a team member creates a dysfunctional team. Do you understand? Creates a dysfunctional team. So if the organization wants to differ to the superior, it means that you may need to be moved to somewhere else. As long as you remain and as long as that situation remains, it will be a hyper-performing team, because you may want to resort to avoidance, since you don't want issues, and you all need to work interdependently to produce the right result. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
So if you have opportunity to recluse yourself through the organizational mechanism, it's also good. You understand? It's important to be in an atmosphere or climate, that you can effectively work and work collaboratively with others.
Thank you, sir.
So as we toil down on this lecture, yes, Vincent, you want to say something?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, sir, and thank you again for this wonderful lecture. It's totally removed from what we know in medical practice, but it really opens our eyes and minds to the happenings around us and better way to approach things. What would you say to this cliche that we don't need to agree, we just need to just work together and get the work done? We are situations where you're working as a team. It would have been collaboration is the best, you as you have said, but people just don't get together and they just come to this philosophy that see, we don't need to be friends. Let's just work and get the work done. What's your reaction to that kind of posture?
That's a compromise. That's a compromise. And that compromise is brought out to the fact that let's look at the task and not look at the team members. And it's not the best of things to do. Now, if you look at the job of a leader, especially if you go back to the fearless theory I shared with you yesterday, you must be bothered. If you are a transactional leader, all you want to focus on is task. You want to get the task done, irrespective of what people think, how they relate, and so on. So, but you will find out that you are getting the task done, if at all you do, at the expense of burning out your team. Nobody is improved. Nobody is happy. Nobody is motivated. They're only just working because they are working for their salary. At the end of the day, you see that will not lead to a long-term impact, on them and even on the task. Because at some point, this lack of motivation will make people not to bring in the best. So efficiency will be compromised eventually. Before now, we used to think that transformational leaders, on this other hand, always remain transformational leaders. Now, in transformational leadership, you invest in people. You make sure that you keep the team in the best state, by making sure that there's bonding, there is cohesiveness, there is provisions, there is development, going on the ground that this will enable them to be highly motivated, to be able to accomplish the task. That's transformational leadership. But what we do know that as a leader, or an adaptive leader. So there are instances you have to apply the transactional approach, and there are also instances you have to apply the transformational approach. You understand? So when somebody says, oh, well, just do that, it's a compromise. It's just telling you that we know we have differences, but let's keep going. That's not the best state for your team. The best state for your team is that everyone works really as a team. Team means together, each achieve more. You understand? Anything else from that state of collaboration, is possibly a compromise and is possibly going to lead to a hyper-performing team. Is Gina saying, asking a question or applauding? Let's know. Gina, please.
Evening, sir.
Someone said bonding may lead to something else when they have opposites. Not sure what that means. Yeah, go
You
on,
listen.
Gina. Yes.
Yes. As a leader, as you have said, you need to have results.
Result,
And
yes.
a good leader produce a goodwill of the people. Now, in a
Absolutely.
team, yes. Now, if sometimes group teams are formed through higher authorities, through policies, and the assignment given to you from the higher authority is not palatable for the leader to produce a goodwill to the people, to the common man, how will leader use, what method will the leader use to accomplish that task to have a good result, sir?
Oh, you mentioned the issue of goodwill. If I understand you, is it like the team cooperating with you when you say goodwill?
The higher authority that form the team.
Yes, they form the team. Your team may not be complementary, correct? It may not be the right team, correct?
Yes, but if
Now,
you are ready to produce a goodwill to
let me
have a
tell you
good
how it
result.
works. If you work in an organization that believes in you, and then they form a team, and then they make you the head of that team, they must always believe you to be able to hear you out if you feel members of the team do not have the complementary skills to be able to achieve that task. The leaders will want to make those changes, or they will permit you to include other persons into the team that will enable you work effectively. You understand? That's on the one hand. But on the other hand, is when we went through the entire 5 phases of team development, no matter how it is, there must always be go through the forming, the norming, the storming, the numbing before you get to the performance stage. And what I said is that we try to make the earlier phases as short as possible. And that comes with clarity of purpose. You know, once you as a team leader makes it very clear what everyone, and you negotiate with them, and then they buy in to whatever role, responsibilities, and so on you have assigned to them, you are more likely to have their full cooperation. Now, it depends on if this is a project. A project has a timeline. So everybody knows that, oh, whatever be the difference is within 3 months, everything will be over after the job is over. So they put behind them. But if you are going to be running as a program over time or a multifunctional, it becomes a challenge. As a leader, you must ensure that every member of your team is in a good shape, yes, and in good form to be able to deliver in the team. I'm not saying it's always easy. There are times you need to actually ask certain persons to leave the team if, in your opinion, they are actually not helping the team. And I believe that if the organization respects your views, they will listen to you because they've made you the leader of that team, because you need to produce results. And each member of the team needs to be accountable and also share in those results. So if you see someone is working against the team's interests or is not contributing his part, it's in your place to know how to deal with that administratively. You understand? Because if you leave such characters, they may affect the performance of the entire team. Okay? The result is very important, and I will share with you later before we close this section how you can gain respect through results. You know, once the results come, there are some naysayers within your team that will now understand where you are going. Not everyone sees what you are seeing. Yesterday, I said a leader must be visionary, meaning that he must have the ability to forecast. You know, and for you to forecast, you again need to develop your senses. And these senses are your hind sense, your insight, your hindsight, your insight, and your foresight. Do you understand? And when we talk about your hindsight, it means that you are able to know or have a rich memory of what has happened in the past that you could learn from to improve what is going on. Your insight talks about how you are able to understand currencies, what is happening at the moment. How can you take advantage of whatever is going on in the moment? And then your foresight has the ability for you to be able to predict what could happen and learn how to navigate everything that you consider an opportunity or an obstacle on the way. A leader must have all that. If you're a leader that is not having a good hindsight, insight, foresight, you make a shipwreck of leadership. In fact, as a matter of fact, you would just be leading a packed vehicle. You're just in the vehicle with your team members and nothing is happening. I'm not sure any one of you will want to sit for long in a packed vehicle. I think I'd give a story about the plane that was packed, and I was actually referring to the Nigerian situation yesterday. And everybody's quarreling, but they didn't know there was no leader, to pilot that plane. So not many people have the patience of sitting in a packed vehicle, so they may jump ship. So leaders must be able to have all those characteristics, and you are the leader we are looking up to. Okay. Okay, I'm looking through the text, the message post. Oh, somebody was talking about bonding, and it said if one of the opposite sex is not in agreement, it may look like okay, sexual. No. A team is a team. It's not. You must have very strong principles. It's a work team. Okay, so now you also need to lead yourself. When we started, I said leaders lead themselves, lead teams, lead organizations. Learning to lead yourself will require you to understand a lot about yourself. And in the later chapter of your lecture note, you will see how you need to understand yourself. Understanding yourself means you take on certain assessment tools, to see how that applies to you. So at the end of the day, ask yourself the question, who am I? You understand? And if you can honestly answer that question, you can help yourself. You can help yourself. One of the things we found in the personal development is that solutions are best derived from within and not from outside. You understand? So a very fair assessment of yourself and a determination to get things done, makes you evolve those things. In fact, if you come to a counselor, the counselor's best intervention for you is to bring out the solution from yourself, and not dish out solutions from outside, or external support, to you. So assessment is very important. Self-awareness is very important. It's about getting to understand how you feel, why you feel the way you are, and how you can improve on yourself. I spoke a lot about emotional intelligence. Tomorrow I'm going to be talking about that. There's what we call the pair challenge, which you guys may do, later on. And this is because generally I know something about myself. I need to find out what others know about me. You understand? And I need to listen carefully to them. Sometimes we say we ignore what people say. It's not true. As a leader, you have a strong sense of perception. What do people say? It may not be true. It may be true. But the saying goes, if one person says you are a horse, ignore him. If two people say you are a horse, think seriously about it. But if three people say you are a horse, then go and get a saddle so that people can keep riding because you're actually a horse. You understand? So you cannot see that repeated this and you can't ignore it. Oh, it's political, it's this, it's that, it's that. Leaders have strong sense of perception. They understand what even people are saying in their mind. Sometimes they may not vocalize it. You understand? Because you are there to serve people and you want to serve them to the best of intent and to the best of advantage to them. You understand? So understanding this will make you try to understand yourself a lot. Even in one of the earlier stage, this thing you did, there's some assessment you do on yourself. You also go to your peers, to assess you, and then you measure the congruency. You do the interclass correlation or the weighted kappa. to know the level of agreement between what you assess and what they assess. What if what you assess is different from what they assess? You find out from the Johari's window that there are things you know about yourself and the public do not know about them. There are some things the public know about you and then you do not know about yourself. There are things both you and the public know. You understand? And there are things that neither you nor the public know about yourself. You understand? These are realities, and they mean a lot. They mean a lot. If you want to reduce your blind spots in life, your blind spot is the things you don't know about yourself and the public know about it. You must have a high sense of perception. What do people think? Assuming you are doing well by your own estimation, why are they talking against you? Have you tried to find out that? Or do you think, well, it's not just important? There are leaders that have been brought to their toes because of very strong public perception. And the strong public perception came because they ignored the subtle things that were going on that they could have used, maybe change certain things. Let's take, for example, you are the manager and the leader of a company. And then the board meeting is supposed to hold by 8 a.m. every Wednesday. And then you, the leader, you come sometimes 8:30, sometimes you even come 10. No apology, no even delegation to say start the board meeting because I'm crossed up somewhere, and stuff like that. You just feel like that. And then when people begin to disrespect your notice or call for meeting, how would you feel? You have actually set a very wrong precedence. So if you're a leader that have not got very good what we call self-management, you want to sleep and walk through yourself through the night, and then you now take it as an excuse why you will not meet up the schedule you have created that others should come to, it's going to run down your leadership, very much. So it's important to look at those blind spots and see the most you can do to narrow the blind spot. For those of us that are drivers, I'm sure we know the importance of not getting so large a blind spot, because that could lead to accidents. And even in leadership, it could lead to accident, in your leadership journey. All right. So these are things we need to study. It's already there. And then you also know what affects you, your working style, and so on. Think through all that. I've shared with you here the TS model, where you look at your internal thought process, your emotions, your actions, and this all result in your signals. Your signals. I spoke to you about signals and noises the other time. Please look at that. Ensure you have a congruence. Congruence is just to ensure that you're in charge. Self-confidence is very important in leadership. I wonder if you are here tonight and someone tells you, oh, something is happening in the office, oh, this is happening, this is happening. I don't know what your reaction would be. I used to tell someone, I don't know why I say it, when there is a brewing crisis in wherever I work, my confidence seems to heighten because I am very confident I can handle it. Sometimes people tell you, what confidence? I just know I can handle it. As long as you have run a system transparently, and you're offering things to the best of your ability. And then when I say transparency in this sense, it means it's an open system, nothing hidden. Everybody can see what's going on. It gives you that distance. But beyond that, in speaking, in public speaking and so on, you must ensure that you have a congruence to your words, your tone, and your body. You understand? You must be in charge of the environment. So it may take a bit of learning, to achieve that. But being in charge of the environment around you, that everybody that is conscious, they know that this person is in charge. Is in charge. There's nothing that moves you. You don't get anything stage managed. reality is dawning on you because you know you can handle it. You are really in charge in that moment. So going through OK Cora, will enable you know how to improve that congruencies, especially looking at your facial, your body, your verbal, and all that. So I will want you to go through all that, on own. If there are issues, I'll look at it. Then we also need to go through the Keller's 5 drivers. These are 5 important drivers, that will help you in your leadership journey. And a lot is said in your lecture note, how you can manage those drivers. Empathy. And so the last chapter of that, of your this thing talks about leadership and effectiveness. How do you improve your effectiveness? Now, you can go back to your John Ada sweet spots I explained to you. If you do those exercises and see how you could attend to the task need, the individual needs, and the group needs, and then form that sweet spot, which is the intersection of all this. You'll be trying different scenarios, and what works for you, you may not do them to the same extent, but ensure that there is an intersection, of those 3 cycles. You are good, as a leader. You learn how to plan and then manage all the change processes we talked about. Learn your communication skills. If you're in academics, you learn how to network. You learn how to communicate, your creativity, and all that. Yes, I've spoken to you about social intelligence, cultural intelligence, emotional intelligence. Yes, that's fine. Then the 5 levels of leadership. Can someone take this lecture now in 5 minutes? I've got some smart dude in the class. Share with me. Just take this lecture. You're seeing it for the first time. You are now the lecturer. Tell us about the 5 levels of leadership. Yes, a volunteer in the house. Where's the hand? Where's the hand that's up? I've shared this one way or the other in the course of this lecture. Or let me ask you to take the one that you know from the bottom. Who can tell us about positional leaders? I've spoken a lot about it. Yes, class. Where are my friends? Don't tell me I don't have any friend in the class.
Good evening, Prof. You have lots of friends.
Yes, Samuel Odo.
Good evening, Prof.
I remember you. Take the first one. Positional leader.
Okay. Thank you very much, Prof. So let me talk about positional leader. First, I'll just read what you've shared, boss. So people follow because they have to, and then your influence will not extend beyond the lines of your job description. So yes. I see positional leadership is probably like the bottom of this pyramid. I consider it like an entry level sort of leadership. Here, the authority is essentially coming because of your job title or your role. For instance, I'll give a very classic example. I will not call a name specifically, but a classic example. Say a senior registrar who is currently doing a residency in a specialty in Nigeria is suddenly appointed commissioner of health of the state he's in. Now he has come into a new level of authority, basically because of his job title or role. He will probably have senior consultants who are typically above him in terms of his career trajectory. But now, because of the role he has, they have to listen to certain things he has to say. The role now puts him in a place where he can exert some kind of authority. And it's not because they have any respect for him, or not because he has any influence, any charismatic influence that they admire, but basically because they are complying with instructions because of the obligation that that the role, places them on. So yeah, I think for somebody who is functioning in this position, as functioning at this level, for me, I think it's crucial for you to not just understand your responsibilities, but build relationships. You have lots of elders, lots of seniors who are well above you, in this job you're about to embark on. So rather than just being very dictatorial, you want to build relationships. If you want to rely solely on your authority, you're only going to limit trust. You're only going to limit engagement from the people you are supposedly leading. And then at the end of the day, you probably just frustrate yourself. I think this is probably why it's the entry level point of leadership. Thank you, Prof.
Yeah, I watched 2 scenarios recently in 2 government establishments where the CEO, that is the Director General, were removed, their tenure expired, and then staff were celebrating. While those people held sway, they had a right. The office demands that you follow them, but they didn't see them as leaders. So this is called positional leadership. And that's one of the most dangerous position we could be. Sometimes people think they've arrived because they've been appointed, into a position. Understandably, the position is always transient. But if you don't have the leadership skills, it goes with you. So once you leave, they want to erase all your footprints, because they feel you are not the right person for that job. But you could go on. At that point, people respect you because of your position, your right, or your rank. And if you go on, people respect you, will follow you because they want to. That means that you've developed a relationship with them. Relationship goes beyond the position. Sometimes people change their friends even when they get into a position. What an irony. You had friends you've always known, you connect with, and then you get into a position, you cut them all off. And then when you get out of the position, you are lonely. No one is coming after you. Now, position will enable you to develop relationship. And then even after you leave the position, people will follow you because of that relationship, and that's permission. And at the next level, the fact that you've got results. Everyone likes to be associated with success. So people follow you because of what you have done for your organization. Results are glaring. So that is a production level of leadership result. People want to stick to you. In fact, they make reference to you. I was in the organization when Mr. SSY was the leader because they know that was a glorious time for the organization. So that is a level that is based on production. Now, the higher level than that is where beyond production, you have impacted a lot of life. You have moved people from levels they didn't know before, capabilities to a very high level, and that is reproduction. You've developed people, made them to have the skills they never had before. They are now competent. They are now certified. You've made it a standard that everyone in your organization must be highly skilled. So because you've done that, you are got to the level of leadership called reproduction. And people will follow you because of what you have done for them. They remember all the good things you've done for them, the enhancement, the transformation they have received under your leadership. And so you become their leader for life. But the highest of it all is that of personhood or respect. Beyond all that you have done, your life is, like we call it, an authentic leadership. You know what you represent. So wherever you find yourself, those things manifest. And because of that, you've gained that respect. So people will follow you because of who you are and what you represent. This is meant for those of you that will spend long years growing people, growing different organizations, and you become a household name when it comes to leadership. Wouldn't you want to climb to the top of leadership? Or you want to remain at the base, get the position? In fact, this day and age, people struggle to even get into position. They fight among themselves. I want to be the boss. I want to be the next medical director or whatever. What do you have to offer? You understand? So it is important. It's important that we strive to climb these levels of leadership. Do we have any comments or contribution from anyone? Let me see the hands. Good. Yes, I see one hand raised. That's Vincent. Go
Yes,
ahead.
sir. Yes, sir. I just want to know, is this a continuum? Is this like a step, or are they disconnected? Can one just be a relational leader and not be a positional leader? Is it a continuum that one has to climb, or are they disconnected one from another?
No. They are, because the truth is this: you may not be in a position, but you are already doing leadership, in a relational. I talked about leadership as influence. And so always look at it in that way, a rallying point, you understand, influence. And we are leaders in different distance. We are actually, sometimes we don't know that in the home, you have a position. Wherever you find yourself, even if you are not the CEO of the organization, you've got a position. You understand? But beyond that position, how have you managed? How have you fared in leadership? The aspiration is that we climb this ladder. You understand? Using the pedestal we currently occupy, to see how to be more. You understand? Most of the time, what kind of blind people, especially in the Nigerian context, is that when they get into a position, they want to get more. They want to get more cars, more money, more this, rather than being more. You understand? So if we change our focus from being more, from being more rather than getting more, you see that it will be great for us, because for you to get to personhood, you must have been time tested in different situations without fail. You understand? And this is where I would like every one of us to be, as our career progress, as the various career, as we are progressing our career. You understand? Badejo, please. Hello?
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, for the class and the lecture so far. I just want to ask a very similar question to what the other person asked, and I wanted to ask this question. I think this question also kind of relates in my mind to the Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs that we spoke about yesterday. So, is it possible for one to just, kind of accelerate through these different levels by focusing on, say, a leader, instead of just wanting to just be a positional leader or a relational leader, goes directly into trying to be a productive leader and then someone that focuses on human development, instead of trying to rise through position
No, but
or
you need a pedestal, you need a platform. You need a platform to manifest all this. This is not about personal leadership. This is all talking about leading teams, leading organization, and all that. You understand? And I did emphasize that we are leaders in our own right. You may not be the CEO, and you use that as a pedestal to grow all this. You understand? So one of the myths I want you to disregard is the fact that you are just a follower. You are a leader wherever you find yourself. You understand? Whether you are not this, but you are leading something, either leading the cash point or leading the whatever, one thing or the other. Use that as a pedestal to grow up that rank. That's what I'm emphasizing.
Okay, so also in relation to the Abraham Maslow hierarchy of needs, is it
Yes.
possible for someone to, at the level of maybe after settling the lower level, which is physiologic needs, just,
Yes.
accelerate and go directly straight to self-actualization, start taking on things that, or missions or projects that look like they are for self-actualization and focusing their energy on that, rather than, thinking about the level of, say,
No,
relationship, belonging in an environment.
the Maslow theory states that you can only go higher when you conquer the lower one. You understand? If you read the lecture note, you will understand it better. You will not be focused thinking about how to get married when you don't have a roof over your head. So your motivation at that point is, how do you have a roof over your head? You understand? Although Maslow seemed to recognize sex as a basic physiologic need, but when it comes to marriage, which is social connection or having other friends around and all those things, it's a higher need. You understand? So by the time you have conquered the basic physiologic need, it no more becomes or remains a motivator. So you are not thinking higher. So usually as humans, we are insatiable. And that is why systems should provide enough opportunity for people to grow around the rank. One of the things we found out in one of our studies on teamwork was that in certain departments in the hospital, people have grown to the point of becoming chief, you understand, by ranking. And so they cannot become head of department because they are not doctors. And that alone was a cause of dissatisfaction. Now, the system was not listening to that. The system was saying, no, you can't be head of department because you are not a doctor. You understand? And we said, no. Look at what the picture is saying. You understand? Everyone wants to aspire, to that point of self-actualization. I don't know what that is. And systems should be able to create that opportunity for people to do that. You can't be a nurse and they tell you cannot be a director one day of nursing. You understand? You will be dissatisfied because I haven't reached that level. You have conquered basic, you have conquered social, you have conquered all this. You have got it. So as system engineers, we must understand this and we should be able to create opportunity for anyone to aspire, to be whatever they can be in the organization so as to be able to contribute their own quota to develop. For them, it's a level of attainment. I was thinking that one day I would, before he died, the former president that is late now, I was thinking I would ask him a question when I see him. Why did you fight several rounds of election to be a president? I really would like to hear him out. When people aspire, what is the motivation? Of course, we know they are motivated, but what is the motivation? It means that they should have had, is it an end in itself or a means to an end? I want to accomplish this. And then when you get into the position, results does not show that you were able to accomplish what people have believed you to have said or to have stood for, to be able to get into that position. It's a leadership failure. You understand? So the Maslow hierarchy of need indicates that as system engineers, we must be able to understand how people aspire and create the opportunities for them if they meet up the requirement. Don't cage any group. If not, it will lead to dissatisfaction and it will lead to dysfunctional team. And that is what part of what is playing out in the health sector as of today. Hello. Okay, somebody says muted, not sure why.
All right, thank you very much, sir. I've just been unmuted. Thank you very much for that response. I think the reason why I kind of had that fixation on, is it possible to, accelerate through the ranks, is because we hear stories and we see examples of people that take up, some humanitarian projects. Some are even, say, pastors who don't necessarily have their physiologic needs satisfied to a certain level, or they are not married, they don't have a home, and they start to, take on human development projects where they try to ensure that, for example, a popular example is there's a guy in Nigeria, and his name is Studio Onokoya. He does this chess in slums project where he teaches children how to, play chess, and from there he has developed a lot of young children, young youth, young males to be and females to be um, software engineers, and then different, different that become different things. But when this guy started to do this, he did not necessarily have um, the general achievements that people would expect people to have, say, before you start to look into, this type of project. He was unmarried, he's still unmarried. He has spoken about how a lot of times he didn't have a place to stay, he didn't even have food to eat, he didn't even have transport, he didn't
So
have a means of
where do you
transportation.
consider him? Where do you consider him? Did you feel he has gone to the state of self-actualization at that point where he was doing all those stuff?
Not at that point, but at the point where he is now, where he has received the national honor. People now know him. He travels all over the world to give talks, to play chess. People is highly ranked. Is about 2,000. His rank is about 2,000 in the international ranking of chess players. But he's majorly known for the humanitarian development work he has done, rather than even all those other things. And yet, it still has some things that we see as, oh, this is level 2, this is level 3, that are not necessarily yet achieved in
Like
his
what?
life.
Tell me what some of those things we see as level 2. But I wanted you to tell me so, because you see, life is so funny. When I was in Helsinki, I worked with someone who spent 25 years of his life as a hand surgeon in the Johns Hopkins University. And after 25 years, he now went on to study administration, and he ended up with being a professor of administration, hospital administration. And then he became the chief medical director of the University of Helsinki Teaching Hospital. At that time, the budget of the University of Helsinki Teaching Hospital was 1 billion euros at that time. And one of the things he told me, we got talking because we became friends, was that he has never had a car all his life. He has never had a car. He said the only thing he has had was a bicycle at a point, but never a car. So he goes on the train, the tram, and all that, even after serving his tenure as chief medical director. Now, you will not tell me that because he never had a car, he was not satisfied. Now, the Abraham Maslow is that people are motivated. They define what is their physiologic needs. It's not a standard definition, but it borders around food, water, shelter, clothing. These are basic things. These are basic things, except we are refugees. You understand? These are basic things. And then from that theory, once you achieve that, it no more becomes a motivator. You understand? So you must be largely satisfied. You must largely satisfy that lower need before you move up to a higher need. You understand this clearly, that car to that gentleman was not one of it. Okay. You understand? It wasn't one of it. I'm sure he has a family. Some people may not even get married, but they have relationship, they have friends, they have people they talk with, they play around with, and so on. They satisfy the social requirement. You understand? Self-esteem, of course, is easy. And then you want to say you want to be the president. That's self-actualization. Or sometimes people just position aside, I want to be the CEO of this organization, or I want to be the counselor of this community. You understand? And so on. So I'm not saying we all must agree with Abraham Maslow, But his position is that once you accomplish a lower need, it no more remains a motivator to you. You want to go higher. You want to look higher. You want to achieve more. You understand? And the system should be able to support you to go as high as you can. But on this issue of levels of leadership, I made it very clear that we all have a platform. We are all leaders. We can use that platform to move higher. You understand? Depending on how our outlook are. Are we building relationship? Even the Bible talks about making to your friends friends of mammon. So that once things don't go, sometimes you are not in a position, you see people come your way and say, oh, we want to do how you were, when you were in that position. That's relationship. Or are you getting results to the point that you are sought after? There are people who will never lack a job if job is a problem. They have made results. Their credentials show all that. So when they move from one, others are grabbing them. In fact, even while they're in one, others are enticing them to come over, you understand, and take things over. That's a production level. What about the reproduction level? When we define leadership, we said leadership is skill, leadership is influence, that we develop and people see it. And these people voluntarily allow us to lead them. You do not enforce yourself on people. What happens in Nigeria and many some African countries that people don't have what it takes, but so whether it means to rig, or to, in fact, it's so funny that we follow the American system where they run massive campaign, even in a digital world. That is fraud. I tell you without any sense of being correct or whatever, the American election is not a test of democracy. It's not the test of democracy. When I was in Europe and I want to be, let's say I want to be a counselor or whatever I want to be, you find out that you won't see massive crowd coming. Everything is digitized. Oh, this is person coming here. Go and look at it. If I have to spread flyer, it will be myself and my wife or with my children. You understand? Standing at train stop, and sharing my flyer and all. Because you are not coming there to make money. You are coming there to actualize that what you have taught. The typical European society is such that 5% of the population are in position, and most of them are motivated to see that Europe is great, their countries are great. So loyalty to their country as well. The bulk majority are just sleeping with their eyes closed, knowing that the 5% are working for everyone. But you see, it's a situation where in a state some time ago, you ask every young man, he said, I want to be a politician. I said, why do you want to be a politician? He said, because politicians are the richest people in the land. That's not leadership. That is a dearth of leadership. It's a dearth of leadership. Issues we have in Africa.
Hello, sir. Seems to have lost you.
They feel threatened by your achievement. They feel threatened by your achievement, and so they don't even want to delegate or authorize people to do anything, so they
So we lost
kind
you
of.
for about a minute there, sir.
Okay.
We
Oh,
lost you
sorry.
for
But
about a minute.
are you hearing me now?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yes, I said the last part of your lecture talks about the ineffective leader. And I intentionally positioned it there so that you will learn from an ineffective leader on how you can be an effective leader. You understand? And I gave 5 major examples. I think there were 6 actually, because there was political leaders, which is also an ineffective leader. So you're looking at an insecure leader is one that is so insecure. Everyone in the organization tends to be a threat to him. Oh, they want my job. Oh, they want to shine so that there will be a replacement for me. So in that way, he micromanages the entire system, make sure that nobody shines, nobody does anything heroic, you understand, because of it's so insecure. It's so he also has that inferiority complex, you understand. And you see kind of leaders, especially in public sectors. In the private sector, I don't think a private man will keep such leader, because the system will not run well. The system is caged. These leaders are self-centered, you understand, and teams are micromanaged. You also have the visionless leader, and he has no sense of direction. Nothing works in that organization. No strategic plan, no direction. People just do anything they like in that system. The incompetent leader is one who does not know what to do. You understand? And in most cases, they don't even want anybody to do anything, and you see them they have very strong social skills, some of them, but put them in position, that organization is dead. And they use their social skill to go and get another one, and kill them. So they are serial killers of organizations. Then you have a selfish leader. In that case, everything must be for its own gain. You can see you're a leader, and then a contractor will come and be giving you money. What kind of leader are you in an organization? So if everybody knows that this man, collects a bribe or one thing or the other, selfish. Everything must have in your interest, what is in it. You understand? You are not a leader. And even the Bible said it, that woe is that country whose king is a child, and the leaders eat early in the morning. So selfish leaders are all over, and you must ensure you shun that kind. And the chameleonic leader are those that are quite unpredictable. They vacillate, from one position to the other, just trying to be right and all that, and that's an ineffective leader. Then the political leader is one who is like a chameleonic leader, but everything that brings political gain is what he goes for. And that's a wrong leader. It's a wrong leader. Everything is this, he looks at it from the lens of politics. What is the political, political gains are not real gains. You understand? They are make-believe kind of activities, that are not sustainable. You understand? So everything around the political leader, like the chameleonic leader, is just, oh, let people see that I'm doing something, and that is why in leadership, we should be able to distinguish the sense of performativeness and transformation. So there are a lot of people that are quite performative. You see them, I see every time on the news, that go look at what they say they're doing. Nothing. Shallow. So you need to be a transformational leader, and not being performative, always saying, always talking, always, laundering your image, and all that, but nothing is going on. Of course, the controlling leader wants to be in the middle of everything. Go back to the insecure leader and then take and compare with the controlling leader on this side. Someone gave this testimony of someone and what I may consider in this picture a political leader. You understand? Typically, they can compromise anything just for their political advancement. They can trade off anybody or anything. And that could be a very dangerous position, because they've not gone to the level where people know them for who they are, and we want to accept them if they think they meet the requirement, of the day. You understand? So these are political leaders. You improve your leadership strength and your managerial effectiveness, and you'll see all that in your lecture notes. The leader's prayer and the manager's prayers are all there, and I hope God leads every one of us well in our leadership trajectory. Yes, thanks so much for, again, another wonderful audience today. And tomorrow, let me hear from Vincent if this is not a legacy hand. Vincent?
Okay, I wanted you, sir. I don't know whether you can hear me now. I
Yes,
wanted you when you were talking about the levels of leadership, I wanted you to talk about the influence of trust and trustworthiness with regards to
yes.
those levels.
No, that's the personhood. That's the personhood, because you have been time tested and various these things. Now, it's not enough to be seen as a leader. You must be true. You must be authentic. You understand? Nothing changes you. And that is why an example you see was we talked about the Indian revolutionist earlier on in the
Mahatma
discourse.
Gandhi.
Yes, Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi was able through the process to get to the level of personhood. You understand? He was trusted inside out, inside out. And that is why people would move along with him even if he didn't say a word. So he's got that large influence, large followership. People just want to know where the body language is going, and they're ready to do anything to move in that direction. It requires a lot of trust. And trust we know is earned. It's something we do, and then we see people see us, and then they test us, and then they see that, look, this guy, this is what he is, you understand? And then they take you for what you are indeed, because they have also tested and seen that you are trustworthy. You understand? So it's very important in leadership that we exude that confidence, to the people that they can trust us with their mandate, to let us lead them. Not sure if there's any other hand. I see Ugochukwu. Nnamdi, please.
Good evening, Prof.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you
evening.
for taking us through this lecture. Mine is kind of, I'm a little bit angry because these things are beautiful in the book. They are
Yes, please.
beautiful hearing them, reading them. But you begin to wonder, where are these people? Are we making progress? Are we influencing people? Are we changing people? If we are making progress, if we are influencing people, if we are changing people, we should see it being reflected in the society, especially Nigeria. I'm a Nigerian. I know we have other country here, but Nigeria, nothing is changing. We are 65 years, things are nosediving. You just asked, if you had opportunity, you have asked Buhari, why did you become president for 8 years? And we didn't see any change. And we have these beautiful people in the academia, they are in the four walls of the university, they are there dishing out this knowledge, but we don't see them in the politics, and we see people who forge certificates, who buy Oluwole certificates, leading us and nosediving us every time they have the opportunity. We need to come out, and people like you, Prof, to let's have breath of fresh air. Let things change, not only in books. Find leadership, how to be a leader, do this and do that, but it's not being reflected. That's one, sir. If you have this opportunity, I know you've seen life, you've experienced it, you've been on the corridor of power, sir. People like you are many. They are not few. We need to do something. We need to change things because corruption is not bigger than us. When we have the kind of wonderful human beings like you, brilliant and well read. Secondly, sir, the slide, I don't know, I was thinking maybe I will have to wait till the end of your class, maybe tomorrow or next week. But again, the slides summarized the book because I have been going through the book you gave us, the Leadership in Health lecture note. Can we, I kindly request, sir, that we have this slide, sir, if you don't mind. Thank you, sir.
Oh, why not? Why not? Why not? If that won't be a burden to you, because I thought the book was more explicit, But if you want the slide, I'll share it
Yes,
as
it
I'm
is.
the slide for
Thank you.
tomorrow. I'll send it through the
Thank you, sir.
classroom.
I
Yeah,
would
leadership.
love to hear that you are up there, sir, in Nigeria. I would love to
No, you
hear
may not
that
be
my
in
lecturer
Nigeria.
is maybe.
contest. But again, leadership calls, leadership beckons, actually. And many times you would understand that we are in different leadership positions. In fact, when you talked about stress management, I should be one example of that when it comes to managing stress, because I've got my hands filled with so many things. These are not, you call them voluntary services, but they take quite a lot of time, and you have to make meaning out of each of them. Apart from managing my center, which is a center of excellence, telling a bold story of how higher education should run, within the context of um, scholarship, funding, innovation, and so on. I run a couple of other things, and so on. And to be honest, I am open to any kind of assignment. I've been involved with quite a lot, even as this lecture is going, there are a lot of calls coming, to get involved in.
More will come so that we change things, sir. More
We do that as much
more will
as
come so that and people like you have friends, you have people that have your kind of thinking, your kind of vision. You bring them on board. Sorry, I'm taking a little time. This INEC, somebody in Abia, the lady that professor that had the Abia State, you see what she did there. People were amazed that somebody could stand out to do something good, unquote, something good. But we had other professors who did that in other states and even, soiled their hands. We know we have people like you in Nigeria, but it seems that we don't have them, or they're afraid to come out, but they decide to stay in the university, in the academia. But again, sir, we appreciate you. And the people you're training, when I look at that pyramid, the pyramid you shared with us, I think you are at the top there. You've moved from some persons you're asking, can somebody
the
move? Can
production.
somebody? Is it a continuum or, sir?
Is it from
You're
reproduction to
person.
personhood?
You're no longer on the position now. You are not at the position now, but you are the people follow because you represent what you are. You are top there, personhood, right? So, and we have other persons who are on personhood level. Let them come out.
Yeah,
We are
that's
tired. At 65, we are
that's quite
tired.
that's quite complimentary, and I must be honest with you. It's not been rosy, but we have made our impact one way or the other. I once had an engagement somewhere, and then they were doing a recruitment at the University of Port Harcourt, and I wasn't aware. It was the head of the department then, the night before, called my attention. He said, "Oh, they're doing an interview. Please, we want you here." I said, "You mean it? And why didn't you people send that notice to me long ago? A long time before that time." He said, "Please, please, 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 please." I came down, had the interview, had the negotiation, and I was taken. He told me, the reason why I called you here is because in the Faculty of Clinical Science, there's no graduate program. And I want you to set up a graduate program. I said, okay. In 3 months, we set up 2 graduate programs in the department. And these have remained the only graduate program for the last 14 years in our university. So within a short time, maybe around 6 years or so, I became the head of department. And I said, I'm going to blow up everything about scholarship in this university, in the system, And God helping, I was able to set up the School of Public Health as well as the African Center of Excellence in Public Health and Toxicological Research. That came through a grant of $6 million. Why? I used that as a motivation, as a vehicle to set up the School of Public Health, And I can attest without any sense of equivocation that both systems, that the School of Public Health and the African Center, they have trained more graduates than the entire university put together. They have. They have trained most graduates. And these are quite impactful. And the university recognized that as well. You understand? And beyond training graduates, we're moving into a state where we want to see that we train people who are industry ready, who impact their world, in different ways and so on, as a way of contributing to the society. There's still a lot to be done in the academia. There's still a lot to do, but like I did say, there are opportunities here and there. You keep doing them and all that, but if one says he wants to be focused, it would be nice to move a little bit more, you understand, maybe for the next 5 years and so on, to consolidate on many of the things. We are creating a quadruple helix in ACE Puto. We have been able to just remaining one of those core elements, which we intend to achieve in the next 1 year. And if we do that, I'll be able to tell a fine story of how we can develop sustainable higher education in Nigeria. You understand? And I'm seriously looking forward to that. If you have opportunity to come to the university, pay a visit to Esputo and see what is going on there. Again, I want to thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Prof.
The hour of tomorrow I will send this lecture note that you requested, and also the one for tomorrow. And I'm going to send a worksheet. I would advise you go through it before the lecture, and so we can share a lot more during the lecture. It's not going to be a long lecture, but I believe it will make meaning to us. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you,
Good
Prof.
night, Prof.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prof.
Prof.
Thank you.
Bye.
Well done, Prof.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prof.
Prof.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you,
Great
Prof.
one.
Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
very much, Prof. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Good
God
night,
bless
Prof.
you.
Thank you.
Prof.
Very
Thank you.
interesting.
Thank
Good night. Prof, thank you. God bless you.
you. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you,
God
Prof.
bless you. Thank
you.
you, Prof.